Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello students, how are you doing? Hope you're doing great. Well, in this video recording, I'd like to continue our lesson for curriculum and course design class. In the previous meeting, we have learned about factors to consider in defining a context in curriculum. And today, inshallah, we will have a new lesson for our class that is about language curriculum design. And today, I do not have a lot of slides to explain, but maybe it takes time too for explaining those slides. So this is slide number 1. This is slide number 3. This is number 4, number 5, 6, and that's it. So I have only 6 slides for today for language curriculum design. In the very first meeting, actually, we had already talked about what curriculum actually is and what course design actually is, and how to define a context for our curriculum, or a context in our, a context in our course. And for that, we had already learned about people that we have to consider in defining the context, and also physical settings, the teaching and learning itself, and also the resources and time. So we have talked about those points, and today, inshallah, we will have a new lesson, and that's going to be about a model. So here it is, model of curriculum design. But before this, I think I need to share this quote with you. So this is not my saying. So this is from Nation and McAllister in 2010. You may read in your screen that here Nation and McAllister stated that curriculum or course design is essentially a practical activity, and I think this is really important to remember for you all, my students in English education department, that you will become a teacher later on. And as according to my explanations before, based on my explanation before, that curriculum itself is an ongoing process. So you will continue doing it again and again, on how that you have to do revisions, and you have to evaluate your teaching and learning in the classroom. So if you start with syllabus, it means that your syllabus will also get a notice, and you still need to do revisions for that. By the time you practice the teaching and learning in the classroom, and after that you have your own lesson plans for that. In every activity you will face, in every academic year, you will face different people, different students, and of course that the way you teach them will not be the same, of course, because the human that you will face in that time are not the same human that you faced before the year before, the previous years. And this quote, I think, is really representative for that, and how that we as teacher and we as curriculum developer, we need to practice the theories that we have in curriculum and course design itself. And curriculum or course design itself is essentially, it means it is important, and the activities done are actually practical. Practical here means that you will have your written curriculum, or your syllabus, or your lesson plan, and then you practice that, and you will experience many things in the field. And the way you do the course, and the way you make evaluation for your course or your class, all of the activities are practical. Okay, they are not theoretical, but the theory will help you to to do the practice, But sometimes the theories that you learn are not suitable with the practice in the field. So I think it is still important to note that curriculum or course design is essentially a practical activity. And without further ado for that quote, because I also think that you can understand what this quote means, and we'll just continue to this. Uh, there is a picture here. It is on my right side right now. So this picture is a model of curriculum design. And this model is not created by me, but this is from Nation and McAllister again. And why I always put Nation and McAllister 2010. This is because based on my lesson plan, I had already shared that to, share this syllabus or share my lesson plan to you too. That for this lesson, the model of curriculum design, we will focus on this book and we will learn the theories about language and curriculum design, model of curriculum designs, and what are the needs to develop or to practice in class based on this book. So it is actually stated in Nation and McAllister 2010. If I'm not mistaken, the pages started from page 1 until page 13, if I'm not mistaken. And I had already quoted some pages too, actually. So page 2, this is page 2 for model of curriculum design, and this is page 3 again, page 4. Okay, I will try to explain this model of curriculum design for you. Here in the model, we can see clearly that there are 3 order circles. So you may see that there are 3 order circles. So here, the first is principle, the second is needs, and the last order circle is environment. And beside this 3 order circle, we also have one subdivided inner circle. Why did I say inner circle? Because this subdivided content and sequencing, monitoring and assessing, format and presentation, and inside this subdivided circle there is goals. Okay, and this subdivided here, so from here you may see my cursor over here. So starting from here, you may see that there are 3 other circles out of this subdivided circle. That is why we call that as outer circle and also inner circle. Or when I say subdivided inner circle, it means that here, okay, this one circle. And beside other circles here, okay, these 3 other circles and one subdivided inner circle, we also have a wider circle, and there is a word over here that you can read. This is evaluation. And what does this model means, and what the 3 other circles mean, and what about the inner circle? We'll try to explain. I will try to explain to you about those circles and the inner circle and even the wider circle, okay, in evaluation. Okay, I think I can start with goals, okay, over here. In subdivided inner circle over here, you may see that in the center of this subdivided circle, there is goals, okay, goals. And this goal is positioned in the very middle of the big circle, right? In the very middle of big circle. And you may see that there are lines, okay? there are lines, and every line, let me read. Okay, the first line in this inner circle, I mean, it goes to principles, right? Principles, and the principles, we do not know the errors, we do not know the way which one should go first, whether the goals goes to principles or principles goes to goals. But over here, what we can understand is that these goals are very important for principles, and goals are also important for having an environment, and goals are also connected or correlated with correlated to needs. Okay, to needs over here, and also the needs as well. So every order circle over here, for example, the principles over here is also connected with goals and the needs too, as well as the environment. So every older circle, we may see together that they are correlated each other. And why should the goals position in the very middle of this big circle? The reason is because in every step, in every design we have for our course, or in uh, every path that we have in the curriculum process for our teaching and learning or for our course, goals are very important. Okay, so we may not do something, or we may not create our class, or we should not choose any specific methods or specific approach for our class, or even techniques or strategies for helping our students to reach something without goals. Okay, so the goals are very important. So every single thing, every single process that we have, or every single activity that we need to apply in our class, they should refer back to goals itself. That is why the goals is positioned in a very is positioned in the very middle of this big circle. And when you do something with content and sequencing, you may see the subdivided circle. Over here, there are three subdivided, there are three segments over here. The first is content and sequencing, monitoring and assessing, and the last is format and presentation. They are the three subdivided circle, and the goals also have influence for these three. Okay, for content and sequencing, for monitoring and assessing, format and presentation. And there is no hierarchy. Which one should go to any specific circle, but you just need to understand that you can go and then back. Okay, do you understand what I mean? When you have the principles for your teaching, you will refer that to your goals, or you create the goals and then you think about the principles. So it could go each other. Okay, so because they are correlated each other. And I haven't mentioned, or I haven't explained about what principles are and what the definitions of environments over here and the older circles over here. You can see here in the environments and what the needs here mean. Okay, and what about content and sequences? What is content over here? What does content refers to? And about monitoring, assessing, as well as format and presentation. Well, actually, before explaining this to you, I also have my own notes, and that's for about how many pages here. So this is my map. I also prepare my maps, and I also help you, my students. When you listen to my explanation, you also take notes. Okay, please take notes if you think that there are some specific points which are important for for you, and you cannot remember that without having notes, so please take notes, okay? So I'll be here in my first mapping. This is what content and sequencing. So this is number one, content and sequencing. And what do we mean by content over here? Content is like materials, or contents are like materials. I'm sorry. Contents are materials or items for your teaching. Okay, items for your teaching, or we can also say this as topic. Okay, so topic materials and topic materials items. So either one of the terms I mentioned, they are actually content. Okay, content are the materials that should be learned, or the materials or items or topics of teaching and learning that you will give to students. So that's content. Okay, content. And sequencing here means time. Okay, time. If you have already prepared materials for students in your course, you should also consider the goals again, as I mentioned before. So you may question yourself, you may question the materials, whether the materials should the goals or not, or the results of the teaching, the result of the materials learned by student will help them achieve the goals of the learning or not. So you've got to think about that. And the materials and topic to learn in a course, you also have to think about the hierarchy or the order of the material. So in this content and sequencing, we will talk about order of the materials. Okay, for example, in a language classroom, in a language teaching and learning, we also teach student grammars, right? Grammars. Or let us just take a simple example like tenses, okay? English tenses. In English, there are more than 10 tenses, right? More than 10 tenses. And for example, we have simple present, we also have simple past, we also have present future. And let us just take the three examples over here. And from these three examples, which one of them that you should give to your students? Of course, you've got to think about that, right? You have to think about that. As a teacher, you should understand that. So do not ever, do not provide materials that your students cannot understand before having the previous lesson. For example, when you teach simple past or past simple, okay, of course the student should understand first about present, okay, simple present, their present things, or present tense, okay. Those are the examples on how the hierarchy of the materials are very important in designing a course, in designing a curriculum, language curriculum. Okay, so content, or once again, content is material for your students, the materials that they will have to achieve the goals. Okay, so when you have the goals, you have the materials to your students, and when your students learn those materials, they will be able to reach the goal. So that's the function. And the sequence, you have to think and consider that the contents or the materials that you will provide to your students will not make them confused. Okay, so you've got to think about the sequences or the hierarchy or the order of the materials. Okay, I think that is clear about content and sequencing, because that's not real difficult actually. And the second division is format and Format and presentation. Format and presentation. Format and presentation part over here in this inner circle. There's going to be about techniques, okay? The format of the lessons or the units of the course. Just like techniques of your teaching, techniques that the students will have in learning the materials that you provide to them, or the types of activities. That also could be types of activities, and teaching methods also could be one of the examples in formats in this format and presentation. Format and presentation. What else? The example. The example is just like strategies for your lesson, strategies for your teaching, or the approach that the teacher will use, or the approach that the teacher will apply to the class or in a course itself. So those are examples of format you may have in your design. And what about presentation? Presentation here means like instruction, okay? Teaching instruction that you will use. Those examples are also like the examples I mentioned before, like techniques, okay? Techniques, methods, strategies, approach for your teaching and learning process. And you've got to understand that the intention of having this kind of format is to help your teaching, okay, is to help your teaching and to help your students learn the materials better so that they can achieve the goals, okay, the goals of the course. And it is basically guided by the best available principles, actually, okay, the best principles of teaching and learning. So that's actually connected with principles in other circles, okay, over here. So this first other circle, so principles in teaching and learning. So if you understand many theories about best teaching practice for language class, you will apply those theories in this part, okay, in format and presentation. What is the portrait of a good English class, for example? So you have the portrait, you have your own view for that, and you've got to understand the applications of those theories in your practice in the field. I mean, in the classroom or in that course. I think that's not really difficult to be understood, right? To be understood. And one thing that I also forgot about content and sequencing before in the first subdividing, okay, here, the first content and sequencing in the first subdividing inner circle over here is that you have to have a consideration that the language content of a course is not presented in the course. I mean, in the course as discrete items. Okay, as discrete items. So language courses should be understood, or you've got to consider that the language content of a course, and of course as discrete item here means that specific items, which is just like special things, and the considerations of the content that they are getting best return. They here means the students. So you also have to consider when your students learn the materials that you provide to them, you've got to make sure that they are getting best return. Return here means what is written? Written here means that when they learn that lesson, they will have a good return to help them achieve the goal. So that's what I mean by having return. Return for learning, for in terms of the use of materials itself. And it makes some points or some contests that there is something useful for learners to learn to advance their control of the language. I think that kind of consideration you also have to think about that. And what else? I think that's enough for content and sequencing. And we're also done with format and presentation. Now we come to the last subdivision of this inner circle, which is monitoring and assessing. Monitoring and assessing. Do you know what monitor means? I'm pretty sure that you understand monitor, right? Monitor and assessment. So monitor and assessment over here is about actually your attention. Okay, it needs to give attention to your class. It needs to give attention to your learners. Okay, it needs to give attention to your learners' progress in their teaching. So there's going to be about attention, and it's kind of how to give attention to your class and how to give attention to your students, how to give attention to your learners progress in their learning. There are many ways for giving that kind of attention actually. You may also have observation actually, okay? Observation of the learning, or you can also test them, okay? Test their ability and test their understanding about the materials given. It could be done actually before, during, and also after the lesson, after teaching and learning process. So it depends on you, on how you can give your attention to their learning. So it depends on the teacher actually. Okay, it depends on the plan that the teacher have. When the teacher needs to do the task, when the teacher needs to do observation, and when the teacher needs to provide some feedbacks. And feedback is also one of the important point, I think, in monitoring and assessment, because we know that especially for online learning right now, maybe, okay, that's not maybe actually, some of teachers they tend to give students assignments, right? Assignments. Not only teachers out there, but also I myself. I also frequently give my students assignment to complete. And as a teacher in designing our course, we also have to think about the feedback that we can give to our learners for their assignments and also their exercise for any kind of testing. Okay, so do not let your learners only finishing or completing or accomplishing their task without having any feedback from teachers. Okay, so if you are planning to design speaking class, for example, and you ask your student for having a speech, I mean, a 3-minute speaking, and they've got to record themselves. Times, let's say that you are teaching 100 students, and how could you listen to those 100 students? So 100 students times 5 assignments, for example. So 5 assignment times 100, it means that there are 500, right? There are 500 files that you need to listen to. And that's a consequence. Again, that's a consequence of teaching and learning. If you give assignments, do not let assignments just be assignments, and you do not have any feedback for your students' practice. So you've got to know that, because by having that kind of attention, you will understand. Okay, you will understand the progress of your learners, whether they understand the lesson or not, whether they can achieve the goals or not. And you have to design that in course design. Okay, in your design, I mean, in the curriculum and course design, everything like that, you've got to plan those things, okay, those things. Starting from your introductions, your walls, teaching after teaching, also assignment, okay, what to do with activities and how to assess them, how to give feedback, and how to test them, how to observe the students, how to assess their skills, how to assess their ability in some specific language competence. And those points and those details are actually the part of our task if we are designing a course, designing a language course. We have to think about that. And fortunately, in Indonesia, we have our government to help us in designing the course also, to design syllabus, to design lesson plan. Okay, get our government in the regulations. I mean, the government's regulation, they had already stated the points. Okay, the points that we need to follow and what are the competencies that every learner should have and should achieve in every level of education. So it means that the job for a teacher, or if you are in a government institution, I mean, you are a teacher in a school, which schools belongs to the government, or even if it is not a public school, we still need to follow the government's regulation, right? The government regulations for the competencies. What are the competencies that we should follow? Starting from I can say that in bahasa Indonesia, kompetensi inti, kompetensi inti and kompetensi dasar ini, basic competence ini, had been had been decided by the government. So the job of teacher is only to develop. Okay, so actually, if we learn curriculum and course design, you are not 100. Okay, I mentioned this before in the practice meeting many times. For undergraduate students like you, your job is not to design 100% curriculum for your students later on at schools, whether you are at elementary school or even junior or senior high schools. So you are not a curriculum designer, I mean, 100%, but you are just a curriculum developer. So you design a course and you develop the curriculum from the government. Okay, so you have the right to have your own methods, your own strategies, your own techniques, your own way to teach your students. But again, the competence that your students should achieve that has been set, okay, that has been set by the government, and you've got to follow that. That's about monitoring and observation. I mean, monitoring and assessing. And again, if you are done with your plan, I mean your design for monitoring or assessing your students, you've got to relate those points back to the goals. Okay, whether the things that you do with monitoring and also assessment support or help the students to get results or get returns to their goals, whether they can achieve their goals or not, whether they can achieve their competence or not. Okay, we are done with the inner circle and also subdivisions of the inner circle. Content and sequencing, we are done with that. For manifestation, we're done with that. And the last is monitoring and assessing, we're done with that. Okay, and also the inner circle, the center one, which is goals. Well, we'll continue to the outer, okay, the three outer circles. Jadi ada lingkaran yang tiga ini, the outer circles over here. So we'll start with environments, okay, here. You may see my cursor up here, environments, and I will start with environments, and the second one is needs, and the last is principles, okay. Environments, what this environment means. Environment here means the situation, okay, the situation of your teaching and learning. So that's not about any environment. So if you talk about the environment of your teaching and learning, that's not what I mean by environment. So environment over here is the situations of your teaching and learning that you face, that or the environments or situation that you will face for your teaching and learning, okay, language teaching and learning. And in this environment, I think to get a better understanding about this environment, I think I need to show you this kind of figure. Factors and environment analysis, though, over here, Nation and McAllister had already informed us or stated three factors in environment analysis. The first is learners, and the second one is teachers, and the last is situation. We'll talk about the three subdivision. Okay, the first subdivision is learners. The environments that we talk about here is the situation, right? I mentioned you before that that's going to be one situation. And the situation that you have to analyze when you want to design a course or you want to design a curriculum is the situation or the environment of your learners. Okay, their surrounding. Okay, the surroundings of your learners, okay, the facilities that they have, okay, it could be facilities they have, it could be the parents or the housing they are living, okay, they are living in, and those factors are actually the basic things that a teacher should understand. It is because the information of the learners, the situation that they are having, are very influential for your teaching success, okay, for your teaching success and for learners' success in a course. That's not only actually about learners, but we have the second point, which is teachers. Um, when we design, okay, and when we design our course, and or for example, when we want to develop the government's curriculum, we need to have this kind of analysis, okay, this kind of analysis. We have to understand, and we have to have, theoretically, we have to have, okay, the information or data about teachers, the skills of the teachers, okay, the capabilities of teaching and learning, okay, and also the learners, okay, the surrounding. Those points are very important later on when you do the teaching. Okay, let me see over here my notes. I actually made my own mapping over here. Let me check. You may see over here. Maybe you will not understand my writing. It's so complicated, right? It looks like very complicated, but I can understand because this is mine. In environment analysis, I put three. Unfortunately, I do not have time. I didn't have time to write this map in my slides. I'm sorry. The first is environment analysis. So you may see over here, learners, teachers, and also teaching resources, teaching and learning situation. The processes, needs analysis. I think I've done those points. I think I had already mentioned those points, the situation. So the idea for environment here is that a curriculum designer or curriculum developer should understand the situation of teaching and learning, and you've got to understand too about the situation of every subject or every actors in teaching and learning, and they are learners and teachers. You've got to understand and have a portrait about their situation, their real environments, and you also need to know the real situation when you want to conduct the teaching and learning process, whether that's going to be done online or that's going to be done offline, face to face in a classroom. And you need to have an analysis before teaching about the condition of that school, the condition of that classroom, the condition of your learners, whether your learners will feel comfortable or not in that classroom, whether you as a teacher will also feel comfortable with that. And you also need to have analysis for example, if you are in a neighborhood, I mean the your neighbor, I mean the class neighbor uh, situation, okay, you need to think about that too, because usually in language classroom when you do speaking or you do listening activities, it will create noise, right? It will create noise, and you also need to think whether your class will disturb another class or not. I mean the neighbors, okay. um, and if you think that your class is going to be very crowded and your class will be very noisy, okay, the class will be very noisy, you've got to think about solution, you think about alternatives for the activities so that you will not disturb other classes. If you do not have some proof, for example, for class border, what can you do? Maybe you may ask your students to have headset, right? So they will have headset, or you will do those activities outside of the class. I mean, outside of the classroom, or you go to language lab. Okay, if the school has lab, and you should understand whether the school situation can support your learning, or maybe the situation of your classroom will make your learners lazy to learn English, lazy to practice. You have to understand those situations, okay, in details. I actually do not really understand. I do not have a lot of examples to tell you about the situation, because in every school they will have their own problem. They will have their own situation in every classroom. Not only in every classroom, but every school. Okay, every school. I mean, sorry, every school will have their own problem because they will have different situation. They will face different environments, okay, different environment. That's why as a teacher you should learn those situations, okay, when you design your class, when you design your course, okay. Okay, I think that's clear about environments. And if you do not understand my explanation, or you think that I miss something in my explanation, or maybe you think I did explanation in a wrong way. I mean, the explanations for the ideas that I mentioned to you are not correct. Just let me know. I am an open person. Okay. I'm also learning. Even I'm your lecturer, I'm still learning too. I'm reading my book before having this video too. Maybe you are cleverer than I. Okay, so we can share, actually, we can share the ideas, we can share the knowledge. And after this, inshallah, I will give you assignment, I mean, to check whether you understand my explanation or not, and I will do it in Google Classroom, not here, okay? I will continue to the next figure I have. Even I do not have a lot of slides, I think it still takes a long duration for explaining the slides to you. I'm sorry. Three types of nets. Okay, let's go back to this model. So we've done with environment, and now we go to here next, the next outer circle, which is nets. Okay, nets. For the nets, in Nation and McAllister, they also mention I don't know, I forgot the pages, but that's not for the introduction. So you will not find the word maybe taxonomy, needs taxonomy, or needs analysis like that in the introductory chapter. If I'm not mistaken, it just called three types of needs like this. That's on page 3. If you want to check your book, Nation and McAllister, 2010, page 3. So in the needs over here, when you design a course, you also have you also need to have, I'm sorry, you also need to have information. You've got to take information about the need, the real needs or necessity of your teaching and learning. And over here, National McAllister mentioned that there are three subdivisions or three things that you need to know to do analysis and the needs itself. The first is lacks, okay, over here, lacks. And the second one is wants, and the last is necessity. I do not know which one should be done number 1, number 2, and number 3, but I'm confident that it should not be done in a sequence way. So you should not do it in order. Which one should be number 1, which one should be number 2, or which one should be done last. You can start with the lacks, or you may also start with wants, and you can also start with necessity. But here, I think I'll go with necessity first. Okay, necessity. When you design a course, a language course for your students or for your class, I mean, when you design a curriculum or syllabus, actually some designers tend to use term syllabus for curriculum. Okay, so when we talk about curriculum, we'll talk about syllabus. And some other friends, I call them friends, dan teman-teman lainnya ya, seperti lesson plan. Kalau di bahasa Indonesia it's just like FPP. Okay, FPP, Prota, Prosem, banyak ya, banyak. Before having those things I mentioned, actually a teacher or a curriculum developer or even a curriculum designer, they should do a survey. It's just like a survey where they take information about the necessity or the real needs of the students. For example, if you are teaching the first grade of senior high school, you need to understand in what level of proficiency they should be. Okay, is that an intermediate level or advanced level or what level? Okay, what other levels they are in, and you have to think about the needs, their needs. Okay, in their age, in their level of education, what are the needs of language they need to have, I mean to have, and to help them survive, to help them survive in the world. Could be it could be in the world. Okay, to, need to survive. And actually, if you are using the curriculum from the government has already set the competencies, right? The competencies, so you just need to develop or make those general competencies to become more specific. Okay, more specific. So you don't have, actually, my students in Indonesia, you don't have to think from the very first about their level, what should they have, okay, in their level. So just refer to the government's regulation, okay, to the government's regulations in what level they are, what conditions they should achieve, okay, and then you develop those necessities. And for that potencies given by the government, actually, you still need to think and consider the real needs for maybe in the details points of that competences. Okay, if we are talking about syllabus, maybe you will have the time allocation for that and the necessity and the materials, still the materials. You've got to think about the materials which are suitable for their level, okay? So in their level, the government had already stated their competencies or the competency they should have, right? They should be. And you've got to find out the materials or any kinds of things which are necessary for them. So that's necessities. So necessities is necessities. Uh, in bahasa Indonesia, the real kebutuhan dari siswa itu sendiri. And when you do this kind of necessity, of course, you also need to ask them about wants, what they want, and you've got to understand what the likes of those students. Okay, that's gonna be actually the second division or subdivision that I'm going to talk in this here. Okay, in this next pieces of this cake in this figure, wants or lacks. So to know about their necessities, besides knowing their necessity, okay, their necessity in their level, necessities in their age, you had better in theory. In the theory, it is mentioned that you also need to understand their wants, okay, what your students wants and what your students lack of. Okay, jadi kekurangannya di mana siswanya and wants-nya itu bagaimana. And how could you know those things? You can do a survey, you can ask them, you can do interview, or you can do pollings, okay? Many things that you may have to dig information or to find out information about what your students wants in your class during a semester or during a year, what the likes of your students, and what about the likes of the students? How could you get information about the likes of students? If you are a teacher in the second grade, maybe that's not real difficult to find information about their present proficiency, right, or the previous proficiency. You may ask the previous teacher to get information about their proficiency in English. What about their speaking? What about their listening? What about their writing? You may ask the previous teachers. And no, what about if you are teaching the first semester student in the first year? I mean, know what I mean? You can actually consult with the 5 principles in curriculum. They actually have the information about the results of the entrance test. Waktu dia masuk PPDB, biasanya ya PPDB atau entrance test, tes masuknya dulu, ya. The entrance test, you may see the report of the entrance test, the result of the entrance test. You may see there, okay. Oh, the students is still low in speaking, for example, or they do not understand grammar. That's why the result like this. So you may learn those reports. You may learn those information from the entrance test, okay, to know the likes of your students. And you can actually do this kind of analysis, I mean, to find information about the likes of your students when you are teaching. That is why I always repeat this in previous meetings, that when you do curriculum design, the process of that curriculum development or curriculum design, you can actually go and back, okay, go and back, because it is in continuous process, okay. Curriculum and course design is a continuous process. When you are teaching specific things, and then you can do observation while you are teaching, and then you can make improvement for your syllabus, for your lesson plans. And when you see in the class that actually your predictions or the information you got before having the class is not suitable with the reality in the classroom, maybe you will have a new information about the likes of your students. Maybe they need to have a focus not in listening, but maybe they need to have more attention to speaking. So you may have that kind of information for yourself, and then you can revise, okay, your designs, and by including information about the likes of your students. And let's just say once if we are asking our students about what they want, I actually had experience asking my students in the university in the previous years what they actually wanted in my class. Sometimes the questions are too, the answers are too varied and big, and sometimes that's very difficult to be achieved in a specific time of learning in one semester. So your job as a teacher, not only your job, but I myself also have job to think about the wants, and you do not have to follow 100% their wants. So you may have a list of their wants. Okay, you may list the wants of your students one by one. For example, the wants you got five, and you've got to relate and try to correlate this wants, this five to the necessity of them. And you also need to refer it back to the goals of the teaching and learning. Okay, the goals that you had set in the very first place. And when you think, or when you had already had your analysis, your answers, whether the one should be followed by you, should be done in the classroom or not, you are the one who knows which one is suitable. Okay, you think about that. And by the time you found, for example, from the five, you omit three. Can you omit those three? Of course. Okay, of course. If you think these three ones will just make your class going down, or the rest of the students will get disturbed, or they will have a bothering time because of the idea from any specific student. So to don't follow that. Okay, so maybe my suggestion to follow the ones is find the majority, and you think about whether that majority wants suits the necessity, and will not ruin the concept of the competence that you will need your students to achieve. Okay, then if they are all points fine, uh, those points are fine, then you can have the ones, okay, to be implemented in your teaching and learning, in your teaching and for your class. Okay, so be careful, and you've got to be really careful. Okay, really careful to follow the wants of your students. Do not follow 100%. You think about other sides that influence, and do not let the wants of your students ruin the idea of the competence of their students should achieve. Okay, should achieve. I think these three types of needs are really clear, so we will refer it back to the previous models. So these are the models we've done with the needs, and here you may see the line for the needs of here that it goes to goal. So after you plan the needs, you've done the analysis for needs, you refer it back to goals. Okay, whether it's just the goals or not. Well, finally, we come to the last order. The last order here, this is principles. What are the principles? Here are subdivisions of principles. Oh, I think Miss, I think it's something wrong with the subdivisions of principle. Let me check. So where's the book? This is actually the book that I'm trying to explain to you right now. So for the subdivision of principles, oh, over here. Oh, this is, oh, this one is the correct one, okay? The slide I show you just now, that's not correct. So over here, this is not correct, okay? The subdivision of principle, this is not the subdivisions of a principle, but these are the subdivisions of needs, okay? needs for doing needs analysis. So let's just use this PDF. Okay, these are the subdivisions of principles that you may read yourself, or let me read for you. The first subdivision is content and sequencing, and the second one is format and presentation, and the last is monitoring and assessment. So the subdivisions of the principle, when we go back to the first model, no, not this one. I guess that's in my PowerPoint slides. Oh, yes, it is. Here. This is clear over here that the principle and the inner circle over here, content sequences, monitoring and assessing, format and presentation. So the things that you do with the content and sequencing, and the things you do with format and presentation, and the things you do with monitoring and assessing, these three subdivision in inner circle. So in this inner circles, those are not those are, but these three subdivision are important. Okay, are important. And then you need, I mean, you will need theories for that. You will need research for that. So research and theories. And research and theories about how to have this subdivision in this inner circle for having content and sequencing, or even having format and presentation, or the last is monitoring and assessing. You will need to have research, and you will need to have theories for that. And those theories or those researches are the principles for your teaching, and that's going to be the order. Okay, the order circle. So this is the order circles principles. So the idea I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me drink. I had already spoken too long, I guess. The subdivision of principle are about theories for none here. These three subdivision of principle here are important to get a notice for research and theories. When you do the content, when you decide the materials for your class, when you decide the items or topics for your learning, for your teaching, you've got to think about the theories behind that, which one is suitable for that content, how to distribute those materials to your students, what are the techniques that you're going to use, that's format and presentation. And how will you deliver those materials to your students, what kind of instruction you're going to use, and will you use 100% English, or you will use their first language, I mean your learners' first language. If you are teaching in Indonesia, will you use Indonesian language, or you will combine Indonesian and also English, or you want to use 100% Bahasa Indonesia to teach English? You've got to think about that. And the way you decide that, actually, you need to do research, okay? You need to do research. You need to learn the theories behind those things. You need to learn about language methodology, teaching methodology, and how to assess or how to test your students. You also need to have a good knowledge, and you also need to have theories and research. So the idea is only theories and research. Okay, research and theories and research. So that what principles actually mean here. Okay, the principles are the research and theories to help you design the content, to help you design the format and presentation for your class, for your teaching and the way you monitor and assess your students, that's going to be the principles for your course design. Okay, finally I'm done. Okay, thanks God. I'm sorry, maybe you feel bored to listen to my explanation in this video, but I think those details are still important to inform to you because you are going to be a teacher and you need those details actually. Even if maybe you have learned those principles in TEFL or teaching methodology class, but when you want to design a course, when you want to develop a language curriculum, you'll need those principles too. Okay, the things I mentioned to you. Okay, that's all for this topic, language curriculum design, especially for model of curriculum design. So for my students, as I mentioned before, as I inform you in the middle of my explanation, that you need to do a summary for what I had already explained to you. Uh, if you have notes, and do the summary for that, okay? And please submit the summary in Google Classroom, I mean on Google Classroom, okay? That's all, students. Hopefully my explanation will be useful for you. And good luck. Okay, good luck for your assignment. That's all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.